Hi, Stacy here with Scrap Girl Designs. Here to talk about some more crafting supplies. So today I wanted to talk about the evolution of stamping, or more like positioning. So I'm going to start with where stamps started, for me anyway, was the wood-mounted vulcanized red rubber wood-mounted stamps. So they came on wooden blocks. They were this is a discontinued Stampin' Up! Set. The artwork was impressed in red rubber. Well, most of the time it was red. This could actually come in different colors. On a foam backer for some bit of a give, and then on wood blocks. And normally the artwork would be on the opposite side of the block, so you could tell what it is that it looked like. And see, I'll show it to you, and then we'll turn it over. And that's the red rubber. This red rubber is still used today, but mostly only in background stamps. The wood usually had some sort of a curve where your fingers could fit into it easily. And then when you would stamp it down, I'm going to do a little sample here. You would ink up your stamp. And I usually like to make sure that I have ink on my... I still have lots of wood-mounted stamps. Some of them I use as decorations in my studio, and others I actually use. So then you would, I don't know if you can see the shiny ink, but the ink is covering the entire stamp. And then you would press the stamp down and give some pressure and allow a little, and I'm just stamping on a scrap piece of graph paper. But I usually like to give the ink a little bit of time to transfer to the paper. And then you lift up. And as you can see, or maybe not so clearly, the impression or the imprint that you get, while good, is not super great. So, if I wanted this to be darker or blacker, then there was the whole issue of trying to line this back up again and restamp it, which never works. Take a minute here and clean off my stamps really quick. This is one of those controversial things. I keep my stamps clean. I don't like them to be all black and full of ink. There are others that say you don't need to clean your stamps. I just do. Anyway, moving on. So then we came along what they call cling mounted stamps. And I have a small little stamp set here just as so you can see what I'm talking about. It's still red rubber. Red rubber really gives the greatest impression of the design. And then on the back side, rather than having it permanently mounted onto a wood block like the previous stamp, it still has that cushion, but along came the acrylic mounts, and then you would simply stick the stamp to the acrylic and it would stay there for the most part. In the early days of these cling mounted stamps, they didn't stick to the blocks so well, so you would turn them over and they would drop off, but they're pretty good now. And they're made pretty widespread. So you mount the stamp onto the acrylic block. These come in many shapes and sizes, these acrylic blocks. And then you just turn your stamp over, give it a little pressure. You don't have to give it CPR, as Tim Holtz would always say, but just give it some good, decent pressure. Give it a second for the ink to transfer, and then lift. And then you have your impression there. And again, I will clean my stamp. So then comes the issue of maybe trying to restamp. Maybe you didn't get the greatest imprint of the artwork and you want to try to restamp it. And, you know, when you're using wood blocks, such as these, the Stampin' Up! Ones came back in the day, you would have to, these would come all mounted in one sheet. You would pop them out of the sheet, and then you would take the sticky back off the artwork, stick it to your stamp, and then you got a sheet of stickers that would go on the opposite side, and you would take the sticker off and put it on your block. Well, that could make this land anywhere in the block, so it isn't exactly where this sticker is, so trying to line it up that way doesn't work. So then came what they called Stamp-A-Ma-Jig. And what this does is it comes with a piece of plastic that has a rougher side and a smooth side, and you basically put this little piece of plastic into the elbow, and there's many shapes and sizes of this type of a stamp positioner, but you put the plastic piece into the elbow, and then you ink up your stamp just like we did before. Make sure there's plenty of ink on this stamp. You put the wood block up into the corner, stamp it onto the piece of plastic. Whoops. Well, my impression is, well, you can see that I made a mess here of that, but I can still see my impression there, which is exactly where this wood block went into the corner. So now I'm gonna position my image where I would like it to be on my project. I'm gonna put my little elbow back in there. I'm gonna not move this little device, this little plastic device. And then I'm gonna put my wood block again up. I'm moving this piece of plastic out of my way. I'm gonna put this wood block up into the corner. I'm gonna stamp it down. And that's gonna allow, and I'm gonna leave this positioner where it is until I know I have a good impression. And what that's gonna allow me to do is go, oh, I want a darker impression than that. So I can ink up my stamp, get more ink on it, put it in the same corner of, now this plastic piece has not moved, so my stamp is going right back in the same position where it was before, even though I can't see the stamp. And I'm gonna wait just a second for the ink to transfer, and then I pick it up, and as you can see, the stamp was in the same exact spot it was the first time I put it down there. So that's the theory behind a stamp positioner. With the wood blocks, you can't see where you might want to re-put your image to stamp it back down, and so you use this in order to stamp right exactly in the same spot. And again, you can use this side of the little, you know, the little elbow in there, or you can use the opposite side of the little elbow in there. I've had this forever. I don't use it very often, but I do keep it because, like I said, I still have wood-mounted stamps around, and I still have plenty of cling-mounted stamps like this that really work in the same theory as the wood-mounted, like this. While you can see around where this stamp might go, but again, I don't know where my image is based on the index piece, the artwork on the back, in order to restamp this down. So this positioner would work for a cling mounted stamp the same way that it would for a wood mounted stamp. You find the position you want to put your image, you stamp the image down on the piece of plastic, and then move the piece, put the piece of plastic where you want your image to go, and then you stamp it down and you get your imprint. So yeah, it's interesting to get those back into their box. So that was how we got by with wood mounted stamps and repositioning them. I'm cleaning this imprint off of this piece of plastic really easily. It just comes right off because it's a non-porous surface, and I'm using dye-based ink on there, so it's not going to stick to that. So you wouldn't want to do that with, say, StazOn ink or something like that. And we could talk about different kinds of ink and what they do in a later video, but inks that stick to non-porous surfaces, you wouldn't want to use on this piece of plastic because it will stain it. So after a bit of time, photopolymer stamps came along, and there's a couple of different types. There's the acrylic stamps, clear stamps, and there's photopolymer, which is a little more expensive because the process takes a little longer, but they usually will come on these plastic backers with the indexing on your plastic piece usually. Stampin' Up! Has changed theirs recently. They don't index on their plastic pieces. Drives me crazy, but that's what they do. This is a very small Altenew stamp set. I believe it was something they gave me for free. The stamps themselves are made out of like a stretchy, clear, a little bit sticky substance, and it holds ink on here pretty well, provided the stamp is conditioned. So again, you're going to stick these to a clear acrylic block. Sometimes these stamps, especially if they're more solid stamps, will have a machine sort of oil on them, which will keep them from capturing the ink very well when they're new. So if you just rub your finger on there until they're a little bit dull, they'll be perfect to accept your ink. Again, you're going to use a dye-based ink and add ink to your stamp, just like you do with a rubber stamp, only as you can probably see right away, as you can see where the ink is from the opposite side. This is the back side, this is the front side. And I can tell by looking through it how much ink is on that stamp. And then I'm going to stamp that down. And again, I'm giving a little slight pressure. You don't want to smush these too hard because they're squishy, and so they will make the letters not be quite as clear. And then you just lift up, and then you have your impression here. And I don't know if you can see that, but it's not really the best impression. The nice thing about these is if you're really patient, which I'm not, you can ink them up again and, get right over the top and line up that stamp again and stamp it down. I have never been very good at that. So let me clean the stamp off.